Give us that joke again. Ollie missed it.
I did.
I I said now that you solved this so well. In my neighborhood, we have a big problem with a reflecting pool. Maybe you could solve that. We have a lot of algae. Yeah.
Did you hear about this? Still topical.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. The best part is like seeing the pictures of the guy who they hired. Like he looks like he's from an 80s mob. I was so perplexed when I was like, this is the guy. He literally looks like one of the mob movies I'd see from the 80s or 90s.
Well, the best thing is if you know the story of Narcissus, right? You know how he died, right? He drowned seeing his reflection in the pool.
Mm.
So we can always hope.
I don't want to get
Um,
us on any kind of watch list. Stop laughing, Ollie.
Okay.
We're gonna get in trouble.
oh, I've been
Okay.
on a watch list since this thing called 9/11. Can't shake it. Although that's not true because once I signed up for TSA pre and global entry, I was able to check in online. So that's been
Oh,
a
nice.
real.
Good.
Yeah, yeah. Turns out if you just pay money, um, you get more rights.
America, you old
Yeah.
SOB.
Yeah, of course. That's how democracy works. Didn't you know?
Yeah, yeah, I'm feeling
Yeah.
it. I'm, man, just being
Yeah.
able to have my little ticket on my phone and not have to go to see the person
Yeah.
at the counter. It's great.
Yeah. No, it's
It is
awesome.
what it
But
is.
we're not here to talk about TSA, or
No,
are we?
we are not. No,
We
no,
might
no.
be.
No, no, please
Allan
not.
Shedlin, welcome back. Ali Khan, introduce our returning guest, our very first returning guest.
Wow.
Wait a minute. This is a special, special episode. Fantastic. Allan Shedlin is an educator, author, and nationally recognized leader in fatherhood and family advocacy. Allan is the founder of the Daddying Film Festival and Forum and several nonprofit funds focused on strengthening father-child relationships. His work has earned him national recognition, including being named Father of the Year by the Fathers and Families Coalition of America. Allan has three daughters and five grandchildren. Welcome back. Words we've never said before. Welcome back, Allan Shedlin, to World's Greatest Dad. Allan, it's so great to see you again.
Well, it's great to see you. And there's one more thing, or a couple more things, but I'll just share one more thing you could add to that introduction, which is, by the way, the best introduction I've received since my mother introduced me. But no, that's not true. But yeah, since I saw you guys last, I've learned that I am going to become, at the end of November, a great grandfather. How about that?
Boom.
Okay,
That
that's incredible because I don't know if you know this. You are our first grandfather that we've had on the show. Um, and you have to come back in December so that you can be our first great grandfather on the show. And I'm very excited for this.
Well, I'm very excited with this new opportunity. What I'm having a lot of trouble with is imagining my youngest daughter being a grandmother.
Oh, that is, yeah, f fair point.
Yeah.
Fair
Mm.
point.
And
That is a,
yeah.
yeah.
How is
And
she doing with the news? Is
well, I
she
was just going
excited?
to say, she said, if it's rough for you, Dad, imagine what it's like for
Yeah,
me. And it doesn't help that I now refer to her as Granny whenever I speak to her.
fair
So,
enough.
I mean, is it fair? How old is your daughter?
so that's my youngest daughter, and
Right.
she is 56.
That is definitely I mean,
That's a young
my
grandma.
yeah,
That's going to be a cool grandma.
that's a very young grand. I mean,
Yeah,
yeah,
Well,
it's a
I'm
that's
young
just
grandma.
trying to think how old I was when I became, so 30 years ago. So I was um, about the same age, 1 year younger than she.
Oh, all right. Well,
Yeah,
you were a young grandpa. That's why
I
you're so hip.
was. Yeah,
yeah.
but in those days we got married a lot younger than people tend to now.
That's true.
Yeah,
Yeah, this is 2026.
yeah.
changed a bit. We've talked about this, Neil. We
Yeah,
have talked
Yeah.
about this.
changed a
Well,
lot.
and so you're back, obviously. We had such a great conversation with you last time, and we only got to really touch on the Daddying Film Fest a little bit, but we thought going into its sixth year, sixth year?
Yep.
Sixth year coming this January, and submissions are open, and we wanted to kind of talk about it, promote it, and kind of dig into its genesis again and how it's evolved and what you're excited to, and just kind of talk daddying in movies. How's that sound?
Sounds great.
Wonderful.
So,
So let's start here. For people who don't know, tell us, what is the Daddying Film Festival?
so the full title is Daddying Film Festival and Forum, which we abbreviate as D3F. So D for Daddying and Festival and Forum, Film Festival and Forum of the three Fs. Um, and maybe the best way to describe it is to describe the genesis, which was that I was asked back in 2001 to write a book on fathering. And because I'm more than a little bit of a smartass, my response was that fathering isn't a book, fathering is a paragraph. And they said, "What are you talking about?" I said, "It's a one-time biological act requiring zero commitment, just a shot of DNA. And that's not a book, it's a paragraph." Um, and I don't criticize without offering an alternative. So I came up with the term daddying, which is a lifelong process where nurturing and fatherhood intersect. Um, and it is lifelong, happily, as I've just attested to with the announcement. Um, anyway, I worked on a book for 3 years, got a proposal together, got an agent who shopped it around. This now goes back to 2003, shopped it around to eight publishers, all of whom had, according to her, exactly the same comment. Best book proposal we've ever seen. Perfect guy to write the book. Um, but no man, but no book on fatherhood has ever been a bestseller. Men don't read or buy books, and no one ever heard of you. There's a giant irony, which was that in 2003 there was a bestseller. It was written by Bill Cosby, at the height of his fame and the height of his wonderful TV series, The Huxtables. Um, and his picture was on the cover, and so it was the height of it, and it sold really well. Anyway, I had spent, almost 3 years working on developing the book and a proposal. Part of that was doing 28 focus groups with kids 5 to 21 in three different countries, and then interviewing now 205 fathers one-on-one from 20 different countries, ranging in age from 16 to 104. At that point, I'd probably interviewed about 50 dads, and the soulful sadness that came out of way too many of those interviews with both the dads and the kids in the focus groups was something that, if it wasn't going to be addressed in a book, somehow needed to be addressed. I couldn't hear all of that and not want to do something about it. I had no idea what it would be, and I happened to see this wonderful movie called My Architect, A Son's Journey. Was one of the three Academy Award nominees in 2003. Was a documentary by the son, obviously, of an architect. The architect's name is Louis Kahn, and his son Nathaniel Kahn did the documentary because he didn't have much of a relationship with his dad, and he thought he'd learn about his dad 25 years after his dad had died, by studying his architecture and interviewing the people who commissioned the work. And I cried through at least half of the movie. And when it got all finished, I was thinking, gee, I wish my dad had been watching the movie with me, so we could have talked about issues that came up in the movie that would have been hard to spontaneously bring up. So that was where the idea for using movies as a way to get into important discussions between fathers and their kids. Um, my father had passed away the year before, so that clearly wasn't going to happen. Um, and because I have ADD, I got distracted for 17 years, and did fatherhood groups on Native American pueblos and penitentiaries at the World Bank, at Head Start centers, all over the place. And 6 years ago, before this white beard came in and I was still shaving, this old man was looking back at me from the mirror and he said, "Hey, buddy, whatever happened to that idea for, creating maybe a film festival?" And so that's how it got started. And the purpose is to use film, just like I wanted to when I watched that movie, to allow filmmakers to explore issues that they had, both plus and minus ones, and then have discussions afterwards, which is why the forum is added, because that's what we do at the forum. I knew nothing, absolutely nothing about film festivals. I had once volunteered for a friend who asked me would I serve wine at her film festival. That was my only exposure to film festivals. Yes, I heard of Sundance and Cannes and Toronto and Berlin and the big ones. There are five big ones. Um, but there are actually almost 1,400 film festivals annually around the world. Um, so knowing nothing about it at all, I contacted a colleague who I knew something about it, and she and I worked together in that first year. And it was called her organization, a wonderful organization called Kids First, or fancily the Coalition for Quality Children's Media, and she's located in Santa Fe. And I called her up. Her name is Rani Levy. And I said, Rani, I know nothing about this. You do. Would you work with me? And she said yes. So that first year, 6 years ago, um, we called it the Kids First Studying Film Festival. We only accepted films done by students, elementary level through undergrad. And in year two, I had learned enough, including that it was difficult working with Rani. Um, she's still a friend and still an advisor, and we're still close, but she does her thing, we do our thing. Um, and we received films that first year from 17 countries. And we thought, wow, that's a surprise. And then we started getting inquiries from independent filmmakers. We've done a film, that might be appropriate for the festival. Could we submit it? And we thought, why not? So, as I told you guys last time, I'm careful how I say this. We accept films done by adults. We do not accept adult films. Perhaps that'll be another film festival sometime, which I don't want anything to do with. But anyway, as of this year, we have now received, drum roll, film from 65 countries. And what that tells me is that this is an issue, um, which you guys clearly know, or you wouldn't have a podcast like this, that is of great importance universally, is the quest by fathers and by their kids to have greater involvement, positive involvement. So that's how it got started. That's its purpose. Um, it's now taken on all sorts of interesting forms, like being invited to curate a couple of films and bring them to large conferences, or to small conferences. Um, so let's see, in next month, we'll be in Nashville. There's a group called the Special Fathers Network, which is a group for fathers with kids with special needs. Um, and we'll show a couple of films and have a discussion afterwards of that. And then we're showing a full-length film, a feature film, at a very large conference out in San Diego in October. So we're doing that kind of thing at this point. Um, and that's what's begun to happen. When the films come in by kids, they are judged by other kids. So as you pointed out, Ali, in the introduction, I am an educator by prior experience and training. And so we teach kids how to judge films, not review them, but judge them. And they judge the kids' films that come in, the films submitted by adults or judged by adults. When we have five finalists in each of the different categories or age groups, for the kids, the five finalists each earn $250. And then we put the finalists online for a week and the public votes. We've learned that the public voting does not determine who wins. It informs who wins, but it doesn't determine it because we discovered that some kids are really good at getting their social network to vote for them, and it's not necessarily the best film. So it informs it, but it doesn't determine it. We learned that the hard way. And then those finalists, as I said, earn 250. The winner earns $500, and not an Oscar, not a Golden Globe, not an Emmy. They win an Atticus, which is named after Atticus Finch, who is considered the best representation of a father figure in literature or media. Um, and the physical prize is actually a pedestal with a daddy and a baby mockingbird on the top of it. And then they come to the forum and we show their films and we discuss them. So,
So how do you teach these kids to judge the films? What's the criteria?
so, we have a protocol that we've developed. It usually takes probably about 15 minutes for them to do the judging. The films submitted by kids so far, I think we haven't had any over a half hour that the kids have made. We definitely have a number of feature films that come in. I saw one yesterday that was an hour and 46 minutes submitted from Russia. Um, so they base it on a couple of things. One, is it good for prompting discussion about the importance of father involvement? Some of it has to do with the technical piece of it. How was the music? How was the filming? Most of the kids' films, or many of the kids' films, probably about half, are submitted on, using their smartphones. Um, so. But they use that kind of criteria. Is it a film that will expand the way you think about being a dad and the importance of father involvement? So that's basically it, and then some technical stuff. And some of the high school kids are able to earn their community, service credits by doing it, which is kind of cool.
So I watched, you're gonna have to help me with the name. I watched one of the films that you sent over with the young girl whose father left them, and she,
Skin knees.
yeah, and
Yeah.
she interviews her father. It seemed like, if I remember correctly, were there some maybe addiction issues, or he was overwhelmed and he kind of left the family, and and she reconnects with him as a teenager. And wow, I mean, you talk about soulful sadness. It was, to me, that kind of encapsulates the power of this festival and just the power of art and film in general. But so, Ollie, I'll fill you in. This teenage girl was making a film about reconnecting with her dad or just kind of going to talk to him. And, so much was said in subtext. They don't give you all of the facts, but essentially the facts that I know are um, dad bailed. It was his second marriage, I believe, and the baby was, or she was basically a baby. The mom realized, I gotta get out of this. This is a tough situation. He was an alcoholic and losing his restaurant business, and it was just so tumultuous. And then he kind of disappeared, and her grandfather became her father figure. Then it looks like her mother may have remarried, and she had this adoptive father. But so she sits down with her biological father, and they talk, and you can tell this guy is so broken by this decision he made and is trying to make amends, but that no matter what he does, it will never really fill the hole. It can always just kind of try. And that's honestly probably what resonated with me most was the scene where they're kind of, I think they're sitting in a garage, and she's like, "Do you mind if I ask you this?" And he's like, "You can ask me anything." And you can tell he's just running back the last 15 years of his life of how did I end up here, that I'm essentially a stranger to my daughter. And yet here they are. And she kind of mentions in narration, and there's a lot of poetry in the narration, but she talks about how awkward it was when they hugged, and I can't help but put myself in those shoes as a father and think of how deeply sad I would feel and empty and regretful if my teenage children felt that way about me, if I had missed that much, because of my own choices. And life is messy and complicated, and here they are together, but it's not all a neat bow. Like, it's not Hollywood. It's not, oh, it's so great to reconnect, Dad, and everything, everything, all is forgiven. And it's it's raw. And I really applaud the girl for being like super brave, and honestly applaud the father too for kind of facing the music as much as he can now. Um, but when I watched that, I was like, oh, I get it. I understand the purpose of this festival. So tell me about when you first saw that movie, um, and kind of like what it means to you and in the broader landscape of just fatherhood and film and this festival.
Well, it impacted me, Neil, the same way it impacted you. And that film actually was the winning film at the high school level last year. It is created, girl's name is Olive. The film was created over a summer program in Colorado Springs at something called the Youth Documentary Academy, which has sent us the most incredibly high level, well done films. Um, and there is another film submitted also last year from the same place on the same theme, and it's called Not All Heroes. And it doesn't have, I mean, neither one has what I consider a happy ending, but at least Olive gets to connect with her dad, who she hasn't seen in 8 years. And she's 17 when she does the movie.
I
Um,
mean, it almost, I mean, it shows you too the power of documentary because like it almost felt scripted, and I know it wasn't, but you just reminded me because he goes, wow, how long has it been? 4 years? And she goes, it's been 8 years. And the idea that he, not even 1 year off, that he thought it had been 4 years and it had been eight, just like it hit me like a train. I was like, whoa, like how disconnected. It just it really it's interesting too because I know that like you've said before and in some of the videos about the festival that it's not just about the presence of being a father, but also the absence and the impact that the absence has, and which thereby then reinforces the importance of the presence. But wow, I mean, and to be fair, like reading's great, but I don't know that a book could have been as impactful as like those images and sounds and watching this real person face her father. And so I know you do scripted too, but wow, that short doc, whew, just blew me away.
Yeah, well, I'll give you a little more information about it because there is more information, and that is that we actually created a special Atticus Award for the Youth Documentary Academy the first time we did that. So they earned that last year for the depth of the work that they do with underserved teenagers in the Colorado Springs area. Um, but I was going out to Colorado to visit my youngest granddaughter who's a student out there. And I called the guy who runs the academy and I said, So you've sent us a number of films. I wonder if the kids who did the films have ever gotten together and seen each other's films and talked about them. And he said some of them have because they kind of help each other too with the films. He said, but no, we've never gotten together to talk about it. And I said, well, I'm going to be in Colorado in a month. Could we do that? Could you get the kids together? So five of the seven of the submitted films got together. We had pizza at his house. And I asked the kids who I was meeting, of course, for the first time, was just sitting informally in a circle eating pizza, and I reviewed the concept of the festival and why we do it. And I said, "What's it been like for you since you did your film? And has your father seen the film?" Um, and as we're going around the circle, Olive happened to be the first person that the director of the program called on, and she said one sentence and then got absolutely hysterical and got up and left. And it was a gigantic issue for me because my instinct is to go find her and put my arm around her and tell her everything's okay and thank you for your bravery and so forth. But I couldn't leave the other kids, so I couldn't do that. And she came back about a half hour later, and she sat down and didn't say another word. And then she sent me a text and she said, I'm really sorry. I apologize to you because I was so looking forward to this. And I wrote her back and said, there is nothing to apologize for. Would you like to Zoom? And she said, I was thinking there's no chance that's happening. And probably within 3 seconds, she said, when? And so we Zoomed. And what I said to her was, I know this is going to sound strange to Olive, but I feel sorry for your father because he has no idea what he's missed. And you are so brave that you did this. And then I said, I have a suggestion, and I wonder if you're up for it. I said, so you're now out of high school because she made the film a couple of years ago. I said, and the importance of you making it and the whole program, and it begins for high school kids, what would you think about doing a program at the middle school level? And she said, that would be interesting. And I said, you know what, Olive? I have exactly the person who should run that program. And her name is Olive. And she said, are you serious? And I said, I'm perfectly serious. You're going to have to do the lion's share of the work because I'm not in Colorado. I got a lot of other stuff going on. But, and she said, you don't know how that just has changed my life, that you have that kind of faith and confidence in me. So when somebody asks me, si- program successful? My response is the festival successful? My response is usually, what's your metric? And what they want to hear is what I began with, which is 65 countries and, 143 films. We've already received in 46 days now, 46 films, which is out of control. Um, but for me, the metric is Olive. And the other metric is Julieta, who won as best short animated film at the undergraduate level 2 years ago. And Julieta, first generation Mexican American kid, is now the assistant producer of the film festival. So for me, those are the metrics that are important. Yeah, it's nice to get films from all those places, but it's those stories, just like the stories in the films, that are really what is important.
How old was Olive when she made the movie or made the documentary, I should say?
17.
Mm, man.
And she hadn't seen her father in 8 years. And the other film I mentioned the called Not All Heroes was done by a kid in that same cohort in the program. And he was 18 and he drove to meet his father after his father agreed to meet with him. And his father never showed up.
What are some of the inspiring portrayals of fathers that have come through the festival that if you want to name a few films we can name check?
Yeah, I think I may have sent you the one called The Small Hours. Did I send you that one? It's very brief. It's like under 5 minutes. And it's a film done by a dad in San Fran in the LA area, which he does, with his own camera. He's a single dad alone with his little boy who is probably about 4. And he calls it the small hours, but it's basically him putting his child to sleep at night and the routine they have, and then going over what do they want to do the next day, and then playing together. And it's, when I talk to the kids who are doing the judging, I usually begin this way. I usually say to them, have you seen any good movies lately? And yeah, I say, well, what one? Okay, Spider-Man, Frozen, one of the big. And I say, do you have that really in your mind now? Yep. And I said, okay, now get it completely out of your mind because the films you're judging are done by kids like you with a smartphone without a big budget like those films. So you got to think about it that way. And so the film in the small hours actually won as the best dad submitted film last year. And it's, in black and white, and it's just a very, very sweet film showing the importance of just those little things, which you guys know as dads. When I do groups with kids around Christmas time, and I've asked, and actually it's when I do my interviews with dads, and I ask them if they remember anything they ever got at Christmas as a gift. No one remembers a specific item,
Hmm.
but they remember the rituals, the smells, and what happened around Christmas. And when I did a dad's group in a nursery school in the DC area, I told the dads that I was giving them a gift for the holidays. They all kind of looked at me like, wait a minute, what do you mean you're giving us a gift? I said, yeah, giving you a gift which is going to tell you exactly what your children most want for the holidays. And they're totally puzzled. And I give them each a mirror. So
How did
that,
they react? What was the reaction?
um, the way you guys just reacted, which was like, what? Right. You know, we were expecting maybe you're going to give us each a puppy.
A lot
Right.
of work. Too much work.
Right. Right. So it's that's to me, so remind people I have 157 years of dadding experience and 130 years of granddadding experience, which is the total age of grandkids and kids, and each one is different. But it's, some of the things you learn. I mean, if you think about your own childhood, childhoods, I'll bet some of this rings true for you.
For sure. What fatherhood stories do you think audiences are most hungry for right now?
So there is a guy actually coincidentally in Colorado Springs who just started a group, and what he wants to do is find films that represent the reality of what it's like to be a dad, where dads are not portrayed either as abusive or as buffoons. Because if you think about some of the films that tend to do well in the theaters, it's one or the other of that. So I think that there's a craving for films that, like The Small Hours. There's another film called Deep Sea, which happens to be done by a middle school teacher who's a dad of two kids, and it's done with a good deal of humor, but also depth. And I don't think I sent it to you. It's called Deep Sea, and he comes home from a full day of work with middle school kids, and all he wants to do is take a piss. And he walks in, and his two little girls, immediately, Daddy, you're home, and can we play and so forth. And that's kind of, I mean, having been a teacher and a school principal, I know, I would get home from a full day of school after a 60-mile commute back home and think, all I want to do is just take a deep breath, right, wash up. But no, your little kids don't quite get that when they're little. So it's just, I think that's what they're kind of hungry for is portrayals of, not superstar dads, but just dads dealing with the issues that we all deal with. Um, I don't remember how old respectively, your
I've
kids.
got an 8 and 6-year-old. Ollie's got a 14-year-old.
Yeah. Okay. So different demands. And when I was doing my daddying interviews, and actually I'm doing one today. So I used to do the daddying interviews just for information for me for the book. But I would say the last 50 have not been for me um, because I'm not writing the book anymore. And it's not, I'm hearing new stories, but I'm not learning too many new things. Um, and so really why I do it now is to remind me of why I do it. But also when I get all finished with the interviews, which last about an hour and a half, and I say, thank you so much for your time and your openness. And the immediate response is no, thank you so much for listening. And so I'm finding when a woman says, if I do the interview at their homes, which happens in about a third of the time, and there's a partner, she occasionally will say to me, how long will this take? And I'll say, well, it depends on how much information gets shared. I have, yes, set questions I ask, but the answer is depends on what gets shared. And she said, well, how long? And I said, well, the average is about an hour and a half. And then I will get an eye roll and a comment like, yeah, you get 10 minutes out of that guy, you're going to be lucky. Of course, I smiled to myself, thinking, well, if you were my partner, you'd not get more than 10 minutes from me either. Um, but what I find is that it's like taking your finger out of an emotional dike. And when you start talking about being a dad authentically and from your heart and your soul, we don't get to talk about that much. So we love talking about it.
Okay,
Okay.
go for it.
So, Ali, one of the interviews I did with a dad with a 14-year-old girl, at the end of the interview, he said to me, um, I know I need to spend more time with my daughter, but I work my tail off all week, and there's no way I can take off all day Saturday to spend with her. And I said to him, um, so, do you think you could have breakfast with her on Saturdays? You don't need to take the whole day off. You think you
Hmm.
could have, um, he said, yeah, probably. And I said, so one of the reasons that guys sometimes don't is because they think they have to do something gigantic that takes all day.
Hmm.
I said to him, and you know what? She probably would be really happy to have breakfast with you and for that to be your routine on Saturdays. And I'll bet you next year she won't even want to have breakfast with you. She's 15. She's not going to want to have breakfast with you on Saturday. She's got better things to do.
Mhm.
So, but I think sometimes we as dads, make it so insurmountable that we end up doing nothing because we feel like we can take all of that time. So, yeah, and it, of course, it's different with 6 and 8 year olds. Um, yeah, than it is with 14-year-olds.
I'm for the most part still a hero. So I've got a few years, until they want nothing to do with me. But for
But but
now,
but
yeah,
you'll be a hero again. I
uh,
promise you.
yeah,
I
God
promise
willing.
you.
So where do you want the festival to be 5 years from now? What are your hopes and dreams for it?
Um, so d doing, more of the curating, bringing it elsewhere. Um, I guess having, if you had told me 6 years ago, Alan, in 6 years you'll have films submitted from 65 countries, I would have said dream on. But um, so I'm not sure. A lot of it will be determined by what comes, because we're doing some other things. So we're doing, I'm in the process of trying to get in touch with, do you know who Mariska Hargitay is?
Yeah.
Sure.
So she's just done an absolutely brilliant film called My Mom Jane.
Hmm. Yeah, I saw it. It's great.
Um, yeah, really wonderful documentary about her mother. But in that documentary, in addition to what she uncovers about her mother and
Hmm.
wanting to make her more of a real person than, a blonde bombshell in Hollywood in the 1950s, she discovers that her father, as you remember, if you saw it, was the person she thought was her father her whole life was not actually her biological father. And she ends up meeting her biological
Hmm.
father. And that exchange between the two of them is really quite extraordinary. One of our three new categories this year. One of the new categories is dads at play. So it's a video of some kind of playing with your kid, whether it's a board game or having a catch or whatever it is you're doing to play with your kid. Um, the second new category is saluting moms. And then the third category is best podcast. Yeah, there you go.
We got to submit. We
Yeah.
got to submit.
I
So you
mean,
guys have to
sure.
submit. Anyway, so her film like hits both, the salute to moms and the daddying element. And so I actually now have a possible way into her. Um, but I'm waiting. So, and the reason that I want to be in touch with her is we want to show her film to a wider audience and then have a discussion afterwards, both about
Mm,
the role of moms. Because, one of the things I write about is that dating does not take place in a vacuum.
sure.
It takes place in a dynamic social situation, which we call family, in
Hmm.
a larger context, which is the world. Um, but I often think about, as an example of that, so when my firstborn child came home from the hospital, she had all sorts of very difficult issues to begin with, but that's not relevant to the story. And I did always in the middle of the night, changing of the diaper. And it actually was so long ago there weren't yet Pampers. So it was changing of the diaper, which meant using a friggin' safety pin, while still asleep and try not to prick yourself, when you're changing the diaper and try not to get awake so you could go back to sleep. Anyway, in the morning would come and my former wife would say, "Oh my God, couldn't you have made it tighter? Look, it was leaking on the side and so forth." And I'd say to her, "So would you like me to do the changing of the diaper in the middle of the night, or would you prefer to do it? Could you do it better than I do? So if you want me to do it in the middle of the night, I can get better at it. But don't criticize me about doing it. So that kind of for me is the context. So, mom is in a position to either, or anybody in the social, is in a position to either encourage or discourage it. And so those are just, important, things to consider. And that's one of the reasons that we want to bring the mothers into this
Hmm.
discussion. Yeah.
So, Alan, we're gonna let you go, but can you tell everybody how do they submit to the Daddying Film Festival, and then where can they catch it?
Okay, so thank you for that. I'll send you the flyer again, which has a QR code, which has all the information on it. So we started accepting submissions, not coincidentally, on Father's Day. As I mentioned, that's about 46 days ago, and we have 46 submissions coincidentally. Um, and the first year we didn't charge anybody for submitting films, but I was told that every film festival charges and you're more legitimate if you do charge. But since it was only kids, I was not about to do that. But second year, we decided that maybe they were right. Um, and the festival has to be funded in some way. So we were charging like $5. But if anybody can't pay, they just tell us and we waive the fee. So until September 7th, it's free.
Hmm.
After September 7th through November 23rd, it costs to submit less for kids than it does for the independent filmmakers. Um, and all that information is on the daddyingfilmfest.com website. And it's all done through a platform called Film Freeway, which is how people, by the way, mostly find out about the film festival. So it's a platform for finding out what festivals exist and how you submit
Hmm.
films to them. Um, and then judging should be completed, like beginning of December. And we put the whole thing together and the forum, and we put the films online, the contested films online. Uh, I think it's January 7th, for about a week. And then we have the film forum in Washington, D.C. for 2 days, January 29th and 30th at American University. So it's their School of Communications, their film department, which we did last year for the first time. We work with them. Very convenient for me. It's only 4 miles from where I live. But also it provides interns with some real life experience to work with us on this. And it, shows real life possibilities of why you make films. If you're a filmmaker, you want people to see your film.
Beautifully said. Alan
Yeah.
Shedlin, thank you for joining us again. We are going to bring you back as a great grandfather.
Yes.
Yes. I will have by then oiled the wheels on my walker so that I can be with you. I'll have my hearing aids tuned up.
All right.
I mean, this is all the things we think of with great grandparents, right?
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
thank you for joining us again. Best of luck with the festival this year, and we'll talk again soon.
Well, thank you for being brave enough to have me on a second time.
Are
Thank
you
you. And
kidding?
thank
We
you.
can't get enough of you, my guy.
Yeah, well, thank you for doing what you do and daddy on.
I
Daddy
know.
on.
You're
Okay.
looking at your next submission. Us.
We got to get it in before the 7th, Ollie. Come on.
Yeah.
Crap. You're right. Otherwise,
All right.
I'll spring for the $5.
All right.
Okay, good. All right.
Adios.
Take good care. Bye-bye.